Mahala Monday family. As always, we'd like to ask you to definitely subscribe and, of course, like and share this, which is really brilliant. And so we can continue to spread some great words. But the Rhoda looked good. Your break was brilliant.
My break was brilliant, Dougal. I needed to do that. Batteries is rebooted and I'm ready with the steam train to go through to 2025. Definitely.
She's... I'm glad you feel that way because
yourself.
Yeah. Great.
You had some rest at least, Dougal.
No, but that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I don't rest. No need to. There's no need to. But things are definitely on the up because we always bring you amazing guests and fantastic contributors to Mahala Monday, which is what it's all about. As you know, of course, it's an interactive show, so we look forward to your comments and questions because we're sure that you want to ask any of our guests that join us, of course, a great question. But tonight, we're kicking it off in style. This is brilliant. Imagine this as the first guest of the year. This is really fantastic. Let me just tell you something interesting about our guest, which I'm hoping to ask him about this. But back in the day, our guest this evening was a roadie.
Oh, what?
A roadie for Def Leppard.
What? No
Amongst
ways.
Amongst others.
Oh, wow.
How's that? I'm just mentioning one. But our guest is really a superstar. When we talk elite, this is where our guest comes from. He is proper. This is the kind of guest you want. And more importantly, of course, our guest has been featured on the Word magazine, which is brilliant. So all the shout out to everybody in the Word magazine family. Our guest has been featured there. Our guest is also an international speaker who has definitely crisscrossed the planet. We're talking 6 continents here, well over 30 odd countries, which is fantastic. And more importantly, our guest has authored several books with a new book to be launched within the first quarter of this year, which we are going to touch on very shortly. But leave aside Boredom Slayer and of course Here Be Dragons. It's just 3 of the wonderful books that our guest has authored. Now, as I told you, of course, this is an extraordinary speaker par excellence who has been a speaker all over the world, have shown other people that, and of course have equipped and helped people to really stand out in a noisy society. And guess what? There is no better way, of course, just to upscale your presentation skills, of course, by listening to our guest. So joining us tonight, and we're live with him, and thank you so much for being with us, the one, the only. Welcome to Mahala Monday. Richard Mulholland is here. Hello, sir. How are you? Fantastic. So it's great to have you here with us, Richard. Really wonderful that you are joining us. And it's such a privilege to actually have you here and speak to you, which is amazing. And we're looking forward to it. So, Richard, I'm just trying to get something here. Producers telling me we just can't hear you at the moment. So I'm going to get that now, and then we will go. So there we go. Thanks, Richard. There we go.
Nice to see you all. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad you can hear me now.
No. Lovely to hear you, man. Lovely. You sound great. We definitely want to hear you.
Oh.
But listen, you've been described in so many ways. But just the preface, just heading into the show, I told Rhoda that you were a roadie.
Yeah, so I that's kind of how I kicked things off. I used to work for an amazing company in South Africa called Gearhouse. At the time, way back, Missing Link is 28 years this year. Oh, wow. So 30 years ago, they were already, I think, the largest single supplier of staging gear on the planet. Yeah. And I was able to tour with bands like Iron Maiden and Def Leppard and Whitney Houston. It was a really incredible time. I worked in lighting, so I was a lighting operator and designer, and it was just one of the best things that I ever did.
Wow, lovely. Fantastic. I just wanted to touch base there because I don't think she believed me when I said that initially in the beginning. But of course, you're joining us this evening because you have not penned 1, 2, 3, but there's a 4th book coming as well. So you've authored some books. Before we delve into all of this and exactly to it is what as you do, in a nutshell, summarize to somebody who arrives here from outer space and says, I want to meet Richard Mulholland. Why would they want to meet you?
Because I can help them suck less in public.
That's a good one.
and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, so I really do wholeheartedly believe that human-to-human communication is one of the most important things that we can be good at. And the bar for that is very, very low in business. And I want to help give people an unfair advantage, or not me, but myself and my businesses want to help give people an unfair advantage by making sure that when they show up in front of the other humans, that people want to listen to them.
Oh, there we go.
Now, currently, you find yourself in the Isle of Man. That is where you are based right now.
Yeah, the wee island.
And how's things going there? Well?
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's very, very nice. It's very different to South Africa, obviously. I lived in South Africa for 40 years. I was born in Scotland, then lived in South Africa for 40 years, and I've been a year here now. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful and different, and that's what makes it wonderful. A lot of people say, you know, anywhere you go in the world, you've just got to, somebody loves it. And all you have to do when you get there is figure out what they love about it, and you'll be happy. Yeah. And so that's what my family and I have been doing. We've been learning what people who love living in the Isle of Man love, and we've really been embracing that.
Ah, fantastic. So, Richard, let's get into it, because I want to ask you some questions here. So, of course, so multiple businesses, and we'll touch on them as we move with our discussion. But the founder, and you mentioned it earlier, for people when they're amongst humans to not suck as much, to really stand out, to be noticeable, and of course give somebody some sort of advantage when it comes to communication, which is, as we all know, fundamentally exceptionally important. Now, you're the founder of this the presentation powerhouse Missing Link. What can you tell us about your brand? What sets your brand apart?
That's funny. I go to war with the word brand in this context because it's what sets our company apart. We're more than just a brand, and I guess our brand is your perception of all of that. Look, we have a very, very specific viewpoint on how people, I don't know if there's anything that sets us apart specifically. I think we have a very unique viewpoint on the way that we choose to show up. We always joke with people that our presentation training, for example, is for people that hate presentation training. The main thing that I want people to understand when they work with us is that presentation shouldn't be something that you dread. Showing up to speak in front of humans should be something you look forward to. Because if you ask all the world speakers, there is no greater high than they feel when they get off a stage. And we want every single person that we work with to feel that. So every single part of our company is about trying to be a solution to boring. And so our experience about dealing with our company has always been that. From the limousine that we used to have to pick people up and drive them to the office with the hot rod flames down it, to the fireman's pole, to the slide, to the shooting range. Everything that we did in our offices and in all the experiences we had working with our clients was around being an antidote to boring and making people fall in love with the idea of storytelling and persuasive communication.
And you're touching on two things there, storytelling. How important is that, you know, for effective public speaking, or just, you know, even if it's not public speaking?
Yeah, so I think storytelling is very important, although I think that we confuse that with meaning that we have to show up and tell our own story. I think a better term would be stories telling, as in the telling of stories to try and help us make the point we want to make. So a lot of people, when it comes to presenting or public speaking, they start with the idea that, hey, I have a story that I want to tell, and then they figure out later what point they want to make. Whereas what we should be thinking about is, what action do I want my audience to take as a result of me being on stage? And then say, what point do I have to make in order to get them to take that action? And then you have to go back to saying, what story can I tell to wrap that point in to make it easier for my audience to consume?
And just listening to you now, because the one question I'm always finding and I'm thinking of right now is the fact, have you ever had a problem or an issue, I shouldn't say problem, where somebody wants to do this and they're having to do a presentation, but obviously their personality, being an introvert, is holding them back? Do you then also help coach them and actually hold their hand and exercise that with them?
Absolutely. And Rhoda, you know, one of the funny things that people don't understand until they know me is I'm very introverted myself. I love being on stage, but I'm not very good in social situations, and I can be a bit awkward at times. And I certainly, my tank gets filled when I'm by myself more than when I'm with people. And one of the strangest things is, we have a public speaking program. We train professional speakers as part of the business. And one of the funny things is how many of the people who join our speaking program are actually introverted. The good news is that a public speaking is about system over skill, or presenting in general. It is about having a good system for the presentation of information, and then applying skill on top of that. So I always argue that a speaker with structure, an unskilled speaker with structure, will always outperform a skilled speaker without one. It's not enough just to be good. You have to be good and correct. And, you got to take your audience on a journey with you.
Wow.
Be able to follow a recipe, if you will.
Yeah, and I find that introverts are often better geared to do this, because the extroverts in the world, they're so naturally good at just showing up and speaking that for them, they're like, I don't need to get better at this. The audience laughs at my jokes and they love me, but they might not move the needle. Whereas the introverts realize, I've got to work at this, and would rather intellectualize how to make and create good material in such a way that the audience wants to pay attention.
Oh, wow.
And then on top of that, then you add once you have content confidence, then you add the delivery confidence.
Now, of course, you touched on it earlier, though, and I want to move on this, and I'm sure this is one of the inspirational things that have sort of launched you in actually pursuing this particular business venture, or having this as part of your business. Earlier, you said that when it comes to presentation and business speaking, when we listen to it, the bar is exceptionally low, sorry. Where did you first notice that?
Yeah, so I believe entrepreneurs were driven by hate, not by love. That Confucius line, do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Nobody does that. Entrepreneurs find something that frustrates them and they change it. You either fix problems or you fill a gap. Now, I was working in the staging companies, and we didn't get work in winter because people don't go to concerts in winter in South Africa. But so I started a conference division. And I would go to all these corporations and I would say to the CEOs, I can make you look like a rock star, and we'd have lights and sound and AV and everything would be amazing. But then I very, very quickly realized that whether they were a CEO or, a graduate, nobody really cared how good they were presenting. People cared more about the show than the tell. And I thought, well, this is crazy, because very, very quickly, you would see somebody every now and then who was just a bit different, who they just brought something that was just a bit more special. And I was obsessed with this, that it was such a hackable thing. Human attention was hackable. You could get into somebody's brain and you could stay there just by changing the way you structure your narrative and how you deliver. So I realized, though, what amazed me was that nothing of significance in the world happens at the others, happens without first having a presentation. Almost everything that happens significantly happens because somebody presented something to lots of people. So it is a very, very, very high value skill. And yet 90% of the people who I see showing up in big conferences with, 500 people, and they're doing a talk for an hour, that's 500 hours of human attention. And yet it's completely acceptable for them to be rubbish. And I couldn't understand this. If the acceptable standard for swimming was the same level as the acceptable standard for presenting, we would all drown. Like there's no other field in the world that has such high stakes that we allow people to be so bad at.
Sure. And it is the case, because the one thing that people normally dislike, and I use the word quite liberally here, is to listen to speeches. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to listen to a speech. But, when you are taken on a journey, I'm just placing myself in that position. And I've listened to a plethora of speakers over the years, and when I listen to them, but the ones who stand out are the ones who've taken me on a journey. They stand out. They're more memorable. I was with them every word, every step of the way, from beginning all the way through to the end.
Yeah, Dougal, that's what you want to do, right? Look at that guy up there. There. What a twit. Don't speak to that guy. Look at he looks far too serious. Sure, that's better. I had to see that. So You're absolutely right. It wants to feel effortless. And you say that people don't enjoy hearing speeches. People love hearing speeches. People hate hearing bad speeches.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm
Big
saying is that the amount of them we expect to go to it amazed me. A missing link. I cannot tell you how often when clients are putting together their conferences, and it'll be, we work on conferences or sometimes maybe 10 million rand conferences, and then at the end of the day we'll quote them a percentage of that for the working on the actual presentations, and nobody cares because they expect the presentations but to be the rubbish they have to go through in order to have the good party afterwards. And they want to spend all that money. But yet if you go to a conference like TED, you're not going to, if you want to fly to TED to watch the actual proper TED event in Vancouver, you're going to be paying about 200,000 rand to do that, and you're going to see 70 or 80 talks over the course of a week. I've been to 5 TEDs, and it's absolutely amazing, and I love every minute of it. And every now and then there might be a speaker that's not as good, but for the most part, my brain is completely fried. It's like going to a show. It's absolutely incredible. Good presentations are wonderful things because they leave an audience, they leave me as a human, a changed person at the end of it. So I walked in, I sat down in the chair, I was one person, somebody spoke for me for 45 minutes. And when I got up, I lived in a different world.
Wow.
I lived in a different world in which I now know what they're telling me about, and now I can't get that out of my head.
Wow.
That's what we should want to do every time we speak to people.
Exactly.
Right? Presentation is very simple. It's about delivering a message in order to evoke an emotion or in order to achieve a desired result. When you can get that emotional response in the other humans, they want to do different things.
That is so true. I'm just listening to you, and it's exactly because I love those TED Talks as well. And there's a few of them that definitely stood out because you know what the experience you feel, especially with the TED presentations, is the fact that that person is speaking to you and you're feeling like you're alone while that person, it's basically hitting the nail on the head. And like they're talking to you. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's the human factor that comes in. It's about personalizing me at the end of the day. And that's what I want to ask you. So why is it important? Because, every time you do a presentation, it's always, I need to be professional about this. I need to, do it this way. But I think you've got the difference on saying it needs to be more human than professional. Am I correct?
And I think it has to be both. But professional is a funny term, right? So what is professional? Is professional dull, boring, and businesslike, or is professional doing a really good job of changing humans? If you're a presenter, professional is a professional presenter changes an audience. A unprofessional presenter delivers information to a group of humans. And you could argue that they do it in a more professional way. They're very polite. They're behind a lectern. They've got very on-brand bullet points. But is that more professional? So I do think that it is about human connection, right? So Aristotle taught us this. There are 3 things that you have to appeal in order to get people to change. You need to have logos, pathos, and ethos. You need to speak to the head, the heart, and the gut.
Wow.
They've got to trust you. They've got to have a good gut feel. They've got to have information in order to act, but really they've got to care about it. And you can't make people care about things if you don't speak to them as humans, if you don't speak to them as other people.
Wow.
And this is why it's such a powerful skill going forward. And especially in the world we live in right now, is that people are craving authentic human-to-human connections and authentic human-to-human communication. So I believe that the share price of being a good speaker is going up and up and up, right? It's probably one of the best times in the world for you to be really, really good at being an eloquent presenter.
Oh,
It is.
Wow.
Richard, we got a comment or two which we just want to touch base on, and because I want to delve into this point a little bit more. How's it, Hubert? Hubert says, yes to a wonderful year ahead. May 2025 bring you new adventures, new dreams, new successes. Welcome back and good evening. Likewise for you. And then people are commenting saying they're loving the studio setup and everything. Thank you so much. Anthony Bota also wishing everybody a happy new year. Thank you for sending that through. Loves the new set. Well, best wishes to all of you. Thank you very much for saying that. It is great. Mark Sauls, we got another one here, sorry, who says, welcome back everybody. Great to have all of you back. Loving the chat. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
For sending that through. And Hubert Pauls says, in regards to introverts and marketing, silent closes make the loudest impact. All right, Richard, did you hear that?
I did indeed.
The last
What,
one.
what do you make of that? It's difficult to tell what he means with it.
Well, so it is difficult to tell. Just as a statement, with silent closes is kind of like when a lot of times people, when they speak about leadership, they say that great leaders listen and that they're not talking all the time. But when you're on the stage, I'm not sure that I completely agree with that. I think great leaders speak. The difference between a leader and a manager is the ability to communicate. They have to listen first in order to get information that is relevant to the people in front of them. But once they've done that, we have to lead with our voice. We follow the humans who speak. Now, the use of silence and the use of gaps and pauses and things like that is fundamentally important. But ultimately, you show me, you do a Google image search for leader, and I will show you a group of human beings standing in front of other humans with their hands in the air. That is the universal cornerstone of leadership.
True.
I wanted to ask
I think I might have taken the comment slightly out of context. So
no.
If he wants to add a bit more detail on it, we can happily address it.
Yeah,
not a problem.
Possibly, because I also think, and I actually want to get, can we get it up again? Let me just be clear with it as well, because what it is, I want to ask the producers just to put it up for us as well, just one more time. It says, in regards to introverts and marketing, silent closes make the loudest impact. So I think it is in agreement to what you said earlier, to where introverts actually analytically look at, where they've got to put something in, and the extrovert might just willy-nilly go along. So closing hard and making a proper impact into what the desired outcome is. So I think that is worth it. Sorry, I posed it to you because I understood it otherwise as well, but thanks, we covered it.
Look, and here be dragons. I do say, though, one of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to selling is that they're afraid to ask for the sale. They're afraid that it's as if they're embarrassed that they're on a sales call. They're not closing. And, I sometimes do think that, people who show up, wow, look at that. People who show up and ask, get. And so we need to be bold, and we need to be confident in ourselves and in what we're presenting and in the difference we can make to people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Quickly, because I want to get to the books that you've all, but I wanted to ask you now, obviously, for the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we see the impact everywhere. AI, of course, everything is there. It's all happening. And how's the role of presentation in an AI world, where we're headed now and what is already around us?
Yeah, so it's been quite fundamental for us. Obviously, we've had to change. We have products built that that exist at the intersection of human in the loop and AI generated decks, and it will be very disruptive to companies like mine that make presentations. If I can jump onto a tool like Beautiful.ai or Gamma and make a presentation super easily, then why wouldn't I? And I don't disagree with that. In fact, I wrote an article because one of our other companies is an AI business called Too Many Robots. And I wrote an article saying why I'm putting myself out of business and why you should too. The bottom line is, if people can do things better using AI than you can do without it, we should go the other way. However, at the moment, it's not a threat. And the reason goes back to what we said earlier. We are trying to use AI presentation tools every single day of our life. But the problem is how AI learns is it looks at everything that's been done before, and it basically tries to synthesize that for you and apply that, the prevailing logic to doing something well for you in a quicker way. So what we found is that AI tools are really, 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 really good at making really bad presentations quickly.
Yeah.
So they look beautiful. They're lipstick on a pig, but they're just lots and lots of bullet points. They're total rubbish, and they would make for a bad presentation, but it'll be pretty and graphically nice. Now, bear into mind, this is as good as it is today. Tomorrow will be better. The next day will be better. And the next day will be better. Yeah. I'm not writing any tools off. I'm saying that in their current iteration, the problem is that the model is learning from thousands and thousands, millions of bad presentations, and it's replicating that.
Yeah.
So best practice for presentation is creating a very, very bad basis for a large language model to learn from. In fact, what we need is a small language model. We need to take the world's best presentations only in multiple contexts. You know, the world's best sales presentations, the world's best, venture capital pitches, the world's best TED Talks.
Oh, yeah.
And in those contexts, we just share that group of information and build AIs using that. And this is one instance in which general knowledge fails us.
Yeah, yeah. No, and what you say that makes complete sense. So quickly, just touch here. I mean, you author. We got Legacy, Boredom Slayer. You touched on Year Be Dragons. Now, I actually wanna start off with a book that is coming out soon, which is Relentless Relevance. That is making an appearance in the first part of the year.
Yeah, so that comes out in March, and I guess it speaks to the very thing that we were speaking about now. It says, be a threat to the future before the future threatens you. And it works under the premise that everything that we did yesterday is up to change. And you can either go on the defense, trying to stop all change and progress as it happens, or you can lead the charge to change the world and as such, change it in your favor. And the hypothesis of the book is that we should do just that. So on every disruptive technology, let's just go back to presentations for now. You look at the world and say, well, what could the positive outcome of something like this be? And so, for example, one of the positive outcomes for us about in the presentation space around the rollout of AIs and the tools like that is that never before has authenticity and actual human connection been more valuable. When you're standing on a stage, you have high authority and extended attention. That compared to the rest of the world, which is very, very low authority and small, seconds of attention at a time. So, and the other thing is that you have trust. When I watch a video of somebody, that could be a deep fake. And increasingly, that could be more and more the case. But when you see a human being standing in front of you across the room, then all of a sudden, it's a connection that feels so real, and that's why I'm so excited. So the book focuses on how do we look at all these things that are changing and how do we see them as a force for good? Because the genie is not going back in the bottle.
Yeah.
And I turned 50 last year. We need to be asking ourselves, how do we stay relevant?
So this is fantastic. Now, of course, Legicide was your very first book that you wrote.
Yeah, so Legicide works under the premise, a very, very simple premise. In an established organization, innovation doesn't happen when you start doing something new. Innovation happens when you stop doing something old, right?
Oh, wow.
So what got you here won't get you there. We need to realize that legacy thinking is holding us back. Now, I wanted to write, that came out the day before my 40th birthday, and I finished and released one copy to the world the day before my 50th birthday. Relentless Relevance is the spiritual successor to that book. And the idea is that 10 years later, what have I learned about that? And so it was going to be called Legicide, 2, but then I realized that actually it had gone further. It was about, in the world we live in today, relevance is no longer a waypoint that you have to check yourself on. Like, are we still relevant? Are we still relevant? The world we live in today, relevance is the road that we travel. So we have to be relentless about being relevant. And the definition for me is the state of being appropriate to the matter at hand. So we need to turn around and ask ourselves constantly, what does the world care about and how important am I with regards to that?
Wow.
And these are some difficult questions that a person will have to ask, because there's some, you really got to sort of look at your capacity, what you can do, what you would like to do, and of course the surrounding, situation you find yourself in, whether you are still on the relevant path. And then I suppose the thought comes in, how far do you pivot and what do you do?
Yeah, a question that I would say that everyone should ask them for is, how useful am I?
Oh, wow.
And that should always be a reasonable answer. And you should be able to answer the question, how useful am I to my family? How useful am I to my kids, to my coworkers? How useful am I? And the more useful you are in any field, the better. And so it's not about being good anymore. Talent is replaceable. And being very, very smart and very, very knowledgeable, that's up for grabs. But being useful, being somebody that people want to turn to, that makes you so relevant.
Wow.
And I actually think as I'm getting older, the more I'm trying to think about how do I stay useful? Right? I never want to reach a point where I run out of use. That's when I just become a drain on my family and the world around me. So I want to And my goal is to keep on living and find new ways to be useful. And that's why I've become obsessed with this idea of being relevant. And so that's the first question I would ask myself is, how am I useful? And the second question I would be asking is, am I defensive or offensive? Am I trying to lead the change, or am I trying to stop it from happening? Yeah. Knowing that no time in history has anybody managed to stop things. Yeah. And then I guess the third thing, and I think the most important thing, is, am I optimistic or am I pessimistic? And I put forward in the book that no pessimist in the world has ever achieved anything worthwhile. Pessimism is not a strategy. You can be petrified, but you must be an optimist. The only people that do things in the world ever are optimists. They're people who believe that even though the odds are terrible, they're going to try and make a change because they have to. They have to keep the belief that if they try something, the world can change. And those are the only people who've ever changed the world. So no matter how you feel about anything we're facing right now with regards to AI or anything, the number one point of your strategy is, how can I be optimistic? How can I lead the charge? And how can I be useful? And when you start thinking about the world through those lenses, it will change you.
Yeah, got that. Jeez. And then I want to touch quickly with Boredom Slayer. I like the name.
So yeah, Boredom Slayer. That is, it's a public speaker's guide to presenting like a pro. And the basic premise is that we realized very, very quickly when people came to our office, years ago, that they didn't need a better presentation because they had assistants that could make presentations for them over and over again. What they needed is a solution to being boring. What the CEOs and C-suite executives we were working with, when they got on stage, they knew that if I get to stand up there and embarrass myself by boring people, one, I'm not going to make the change that I want to make. And two, I'm going to feel humiliated. So we realized that it wasn't, people didn't come to us in order to be good presenters. They came to us because they didn't want to be boring. They were running away from being the boring presenters they were before. And so that's the name of our presentation training. Our flagship presentation program is called Boredom Slayer. It's obviously the name of the book. And it's actually if there was one underlying concept that has fed my entire existence and life, it is that I want to be a solution to boring in everything that I do.
Richard, I want to touch base quickly with one or two comments, and then we're going to wrap up with you in a moment. And thank you so much once again for joining us and being with us. So we got a comment or two that we will flag up here. The word architect, hello, says looking forward to the new book, Rich. Yeah. So
thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Nicole Buckley says, extend the hand first. Yes, that is what you got to do. Yes, AI is great, but what about plagiarism? Richard, let me put that to you.
We've all heard the line, steal like an artist. It's amazing to me that we only believe that it is only computers that are learning from the work of people that came before us. I learn from every speaker that I watch. I learn from every book that I read. I'm not sure, and we don't accredit every single thing because everything that came before us in the world makes us smarter and better. Now, I understand direct plagiarism, but I struggle with the idea of, let's say, an image generation tool because it is able to scan other images made by other artists throughout history. And the bottom line is, this Norman O'Flynn picture that I have behind me here, now, Norman O'Flynn would have been inspired by other artists. It's not like he was blind until the day that he started making art. It's that he constantly fed, I like that from that person, and that from that person, and that from that person. And that's why that great book is called Steal Like an Artist, because that's what artists do. And so AIs are just doing what humans have done throughout history. The only thing they're able to do it with is the speed and efficiency that we haven't been able to do yet. So, but again, we're not changing it. It's not going back. So we can get caught up in concepts like that, or we can turn around and say, well, this is the world we live in right now, and we've got to move forward.
Yeah.
So true.
Let me ask you this, and without tilting your hand too much, what is something you wish people would stop doing during presentations? And even if I can tell it.
I wish that people would stop not caring about their audience when they got on stage. And I wish people would start recognizing that when you're on stage with 100 people for 1 hour, that's 100 hours of attention, and act accordingly. Yeah, it's very, very simple. It's a very, very simple structure that you can follow to deliver a very easy presentation. And there are so many different ones available. We have one, obviously, but being slightly better at presenting is very, very easy. But it starts by you caring. And so the other thing, obviously, is not simply throwing, but we've all know this, but don't simply throw every single thing that you want to say on screen. It's not your job to present documents.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, send out the slides beforehand. There is certain cases where you are actually presenting a document and you just got it on screen to make it easier for everybody to see while you're taking them through it. But if you're a presenter, in most instances, what you want to do is to take people on a journey.
Yeah.
I think that we just need to, if people could just start caring more, and start practicing in public. Presenting is a skill that you can only get better at when you do it. So put your hand up to present when the stakes are low, so that when the stakes are high, you're good at it.
Yeah.
Don't run away from this. Enjoy it.
Yeah. So I've asked you that. Then I've also got to ask you now, how can someone make sure that, and to add to what you've just said, that they have like a show-stopping presentation?
Mic
a
drop.
quick, mic drop, just a quick tip.
Okay, so there's no silver bullet to having a absolute mic drop. But the idea is to make sure that you take your audience on a very, very specific journey. You want to open with clarity and curiosity. So they've got to be clear about the topic you're talking about, and they've got to be curious about what it is you want to say. You want to make sure that you leave your audience at a better place than where you left them, than where you got them. And the way you do that is by managing the tone, flow, and energy of your talk throughout. I'll give you a very, very, very quick framework that people can follow to try and actually build a better, there'll be an order of magnitude better just off the bat. And then I'll give you one little thing that I think you should work on that will make you jump from being a amateur bad presenter to being a kind of good, on your way to being a professional speaker. And there's one little thing you have to become good at. So the structure, first of all, is very, very simple. You want to start your presentation by giving your audience a reason to care. Fill their gas tanks. Okay. Then you want to transition and give them a reason to believe. This is very short. Why should they trust you on this topic specifically? Or why should they trust the information you're about to present? So give them a reason to care, then give them a reason to believe. Then you want to tell them what they need to know. You want to pick just 3 ideas, and you want to give them a bit of information around that. And finally, and most importantly, you want to end by telling them what they need to do. So give them a reason to care, give them a reason to believe, tell them what they need to know, and then tell them what they need to do. Remember, a presentation is about delivering a message to invoke an emotion to achieve a desired result. You don't get the result unless you ask. So that's a structure. Structure your presentation into that. If you search on YouTube for Missing Links Action Framework, you'll find me go into detail on that. Wow. And then the one little thing that you can do to appear like a professional speaker straight away is to manage your segues. And this is going to sound like such an oversimplification, but it's the first thing we teach all professional speakers. Is there's nothing worse than seeing somebody on stage saying, all right, so click. yes, the next slide shows such and such. What you want to do is your slides must always follow you. You must never follow your slides. So you want to be looking at the next slide on your comfort monitor, what's coming next, and you want to start leading into that content before you press click. This sounds so silly, like it shouldn't be as effective as it is, but it will change everything. So now what I would do is I would turn around and say, so that's everything about that. However, there is one trick that you can do that will make a difference. And that trick, my friends, is managing your segues. Click. And then when that click happens, everything changes. So it appears as if you're so ahead of everything, and it looks like magic to the audience because it's like you just always know what's coming before it appears there. And it's such an easy trick because the way you manage it is on your comfort monitor or on your laptop, making sure you have presenter view so you can see your next slide. If you want to be better at presenting instantly, make sure you can always see your next slide when you're on stage and tease it before you get to it.
There we go.
Thank you.
Pull a teaser.
Wow.
That's a great tip. That's a wonderful,
wonderful
tip, Richard. So, Richard, when the book comes out in March, Relentless Relevance, where will folks be able to find it?
Yeah, but it's we work with Tracy McDonald Publishers, so it will be available all over South Africa. It'll also be available worldwide through Audible or in Amazon. But definitely support your local bookshop if you can. That would be wonderful. If you want to, you can go to getrich.af. That's my website. You can sign up to my newsletter there, and you'll be notified on the pre-release as soon as it comes out, and you can be one of the first to get a copy.
Beautiful,
Excellent.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Fantastic. And can you give me the details again of the website, which is getrich?
.af.
AF. Got it.
AF.
Yeah, so but you can go to richmulholland.com, but getrich.af will get you there easier.
Perfect, perfect.
Excellent,
And
excellent.
then I just wanted to jump a bit before we finish off, Dougal. So we are aware of the fact that you were in the Word Mag and you had a photo shoot and all of that, some of the pictures we saw earlier. How was that experience and how was the Word Mag interview?
The interview has been amazing. I enjoyed it so much that when they asked me if I would contribute monthly, it was an easy yes for me. The photo shoot was super fun. It was not, photo shoots are always, especially the older you get, the worse you feel in front of a camera and the more you'd rather be behind one. But it was super fun. I had a great time. Oh, geez, but just don't make me look at photos of myself. I'm having to block them out while I speak to you. But just working with the team at Word, I love the mission that they're on. I love what they're trying to do, and getting to be a very, very small part of that team as a contributor is just a real privilege.
Oh,
Fantastic, fantastic. Listen, Richard, it has been a real thrill and a real privilege actually having a chat to you, and thank you so much for making time for chatting with us and being here with us. And what a way to kick off the year. This is our first episode for the year, so what a way to start it. But thank you once again for joining us, and we wish you all the best and everything of the best. And thank you for making such a positive contribution and trying to aid people. And yes, and I hope you succeed in your mission, so no speaker is ever boring ever again.
Yeah, we want to help ordinary people deliver extraordinary presentations. Good Word, thank you so much for having me.
Big pleasure. Look after yourself. Thank you, Richard. That is Richard Mulholland, everybody. He is in the Isle of Man, and coming out in March is his new book, so you got to find it, Relentless Relevance. That will be hitting shelves in March. But what you got to do, you go to getrich.af. That is the website. You will find all the details there, and of course, you check out his newsletter as well, and all the details. So simply go to getrich.af. There we go. Yeah. As easy as that.
As easy as that. How interesting was that, Dougal? Our first show.
Fabulous.
I mean, oh, come on.
Absolutely fabulous. And I love the fact that he gave such practical, easy tips. And the one thing that comes across when Richard speaks, because everybody, yes, it is skill. It is something you've got to work with. But obviously, this is a recipe that he knows. He's exceptionally good at it. I mean, this is a person who's spoken all over the world, loads of countries, right? Yeah. So who does this? And this is fantastic and can put it over succinctly, easy, nice. There you go. That's what you got to do. Exactly. So, without further ado, that's the person you speak to.
That's the person you speak to.
That's why we spoke to him.
And exactly. And you know what? Starting your year off, when you're going to be doing presentations now, you had he basically gave you the information to be able to assist you to make it, so much easier. Yeah. Because I can tell you, Dougal, I do tend to get quite bored if somebody's actually doing a presentation and they just don't get, or I don't get them, they're bored. It's boring, you know what I'm saying?
100%.
So I think they all need to go to Richard. And I think from now on, if I go to a conference, I do find somebody that actually does it. You know what, Richard, I'm giving you your details, and you need to help them.
But what you got to do is definitely go to getrich.af. There's a comment there. Anthony Borta says, really enjoyed the show. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you very much for that. Jabbar says, hello and Happy New Year to all of you and everybody the best for 2025. Likewise. Be nice, Rich. Richard was a pleasure to interview. When he was interviewed by the magazine. Look out for Richard's vertical. In Word Mag, you've been lied to about next edition out in a few days. Fantastic. Thank you, Lisa, for putting up that out there as well. So, yes, absolutely brilliant. And you got to go check out everything there, because on the Word Mag it's just really brilliant. Brilliant.
And also, guys, go to the Word Mag as well, because there is a whole lot of other magazines there as well. There's a new publication coming out now, I think next week sometime. We will give you a highlight on that as well, the dates when it will be published. It's a free mag, guys. Go and read. And I'm telling you,
insightful.
It's very insightful. I basically read most of them. And I'm telling you, It is really, really insightful. And the information that's out there, like Richard had just spoken to us, it's all there. It's free information.
Yeah, and I
Go
must
for
say,
it.
Lisa and the team, they do a brilliant
They're
job.
brilliant, brilliant.
Outstanding, truly outstanding. But that wraps up our first episode for the year 2025. And trust me, this has been a memorable one. We were so looking forward to talking to Richard Mulholland, and that dream is realized. So now the year can come. I feel like I can conquer everything within the next few days and months to follow. But thank you very much for being part of this. Of course, a big thank you to our guest this evening, Richard Mulholland, for joining us. And don't forget, definitely share this and subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss anything here on Mahala Monday. That's it, Rhoda.
That's it, guys. Have a fabulous week. Go and enjoy your supper, your drinks, or whatever you're going to be doing now after the show. But a great week ahead.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.